Welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast, where we believe you don't have to choose between doing what you love and building something truly successful. Each episode, we cut through the noise to show you exactly where your energy should go, how to eliminate what's keeping you stuck, and most importantly, how to tell the difference between what's actually making you money and what's just keeping you busy. Around here, we're all about helping you to work smarter, build stronger, and dream bigger. You've already built something amazing, but if it feels like you're stuck in a cycle of back-to-back calls, half-finished launches, and late nights just trying to catch up, you're not alone. Most women start their businesses with passion and drive, but somewhere along the way, they start settling for good enough. They want more, but worry it will cost them too much. And let's be honest, we spend so much time thinking about how to help others, we start feeling guilty for wanting to build real wealth or prioritize our own goals. That's exactly why I created the Real Women, Real Business Mastery Program to help ambitious women like you stop settling for just enough and start building a business that's truly aligned, where passion, profits, and progress work together, because making more doesn't mean sacrificing more. It means building smarter with the right support and the right strategies. If you're ready for sustainable success in a business you actually love running, book your free coaching assessment at aboutShaunaLynn.com/coach me. Let's explore what's possible together. Hey there, real women, and welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. I am your host, Shauna Lynn Simon, and can you believe that we are just days away from closing out 2025? And whether you're wrapping up client projects or preparing for some time off, or maybe you are already in full relaxation mode, and if you are, thank you so much for bringing me into your relaxing time. And I want to talk about something that a lot of business owners tend to skip this time of year, and it costs them. It's costed them in terms of clarity, in confidence, and momentum heading into the new year. And all of that costs us real time and money. So today I want to talk about how to close the year like the CEO that you are, not with guilt about what didn't happen, not with overwhelm about what's coming, but with intention, with celebration and strategic clarity. Because how you close the year determines how you're going to open the next one. So grab your favorite beverage, find a cozy spot, and we're going to do this together. I'm going to walk you through the exercises that I go through and share a little bit about how my year went this year as well. So here's the thing, most business owners, they either ignore this year-end reflection entirely, or they beat themselves up for what they didn't accomplish. And there are a few ladies that I know that I work with who I know are going to be doing this year. And I really want to help them to prevent these negative thoughts from coming in, and instead help them to find a way to intentionally learn from these challenges that they might have faced in the year, the things that didn't happen. We're not going to ignore them, but we don't want to beat ourselves up for them. Those are two very different things. We can acknowledge them and take the lessons from them without having to feel guilty about what didn't get done. And so what happens is these business owners, they jump into January, they've got the same patterns, that same stress, and that same lack of clarity. And what ends up happening is they miss the opportunity to celebrate the wins, to extract the lessons that we're going to cover today, and to really set themselves up for true sustainable success. So the challenge with doing this is you're starting the new year feeling like you're behind before it's even begun. Have you ever started a week this way, where you feel like the week is so overwhelming ahead of you because you didn't start the week with intention, you didn't prepare for the week ahead, and so now you feel like you're behind before the week even got started? Well, imagine doing that to your entire year. And what ends up happening when you do this is you're going to repeat the same mistakes and the same patterns. And before you tell me, Shauna Lynn, I don't have time to reflect, trust me, this is absolutely worth your time. And even if it's dipping into a little bit of your relaxation mode, let me tell you, this is actually going to, doing this technique, taking this time to do this reflection, is going to help you to make better use of your relaxing downtime during the holiday season. Regardless of what you celebrate, regardless of how much or how little time off you're taking, I want to make sure that when you are enjoying some downtime, you can actually, enjoy it. So again, these entrepreneurs who are starting the year feeling like they're behind before it's even begun because they haven't done this reflection. They end up repeating those same mistakes and patterns, and they miss out on valuable insights that could actually transform their business and prepare them for a whole new year, as opposed to doing the same thing every day. This is how we kill our passion, of course, is by getting stuck in the grind of things without really taking the time to reflect on things. And we end up carrying unnecessary baggage into the new year as well. But when you do this strategic reflection, you get clarity on what's working and what's not. You get confidence from celebrating those real wins that you had, big or small. That's going to help to boost your confidence. And you're going to find strategic direction for this new year so that you are entering it feeling like you've got a game plan and an action plan to go ahead. And I want to give you permission in this episode today to let go of what's no longer serving you. I did a whole episode on this. Episode 45 is all about letting go of what no longer serves you. Feel free to check it out. But I want to tell you about how I've always approached errors in judgment, mistakes, failures, whatever term you're using in your head for them. I've always celebrated these. So I will tell you with my team, whenever something happens that didn't quite go as planned, you can call it again a mistake, a failure, a misstep, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it out. So we discuss it as a team. Instead of this being a private, behind closed doors kind of conversation where they get reprimanded, instead, we're going to have a public discussion about what happened, why it happened, and how we could have avoided it, or how we can put things in place to avoid it in the future. So what was our role in things? What was maybe out of our control? And how can we make things better going forward? And what this does is a few things. One, it allows us to embrace the mistakes, to not beat ourselves up too hard about them, because they know they're not going to get in serious trouble from me. Now, don't get me wrong. I do have a low tolerance for repeated mistakes. But we also look at when mistakes are happening repeatedly, is this a person problem or is this a process problem? And if we can solve it through the process, then everything, I don't want to say everything's fine, but that we've got a path for moving forward. But there is obviously, there's got to be consequences for repeat same mistakes that aren't getting corrected, despite putting as much effort as possible into making changes to make it as easy as possible to succeed. But this is the thing. I'm all about ensuring that my team members are set up for success. So when a mistake happens, I want to take a look at how our company played a role in that. How did our processes and our systems and our culture play a role in that? Or was it something that we've just never navigated before? There's always so many different factors to this. I actually heard recently, this was really interesting, but I heard recently about a company that only allows 2 mistakes per year of their team members. Can you imagine only allowing yourself 2 mistakes a year? I don't know about you, but I am not that perfect. I mean, there are some days where I feel like I'm pretty darn perfect, don't get me wrong. And of course, I embrace the imperfections as perfection. But at the end of the day, can you imagine only making 2 mistakes? Think of what you would be losing out on by forcing yourself to try to do everything perfectly every time. You don't get those opportunities to learn the same way. Let's face it, when things are rolling smoothly, we're not really learning that much. If your clients are telling you how amazing everything is and everything's perfect all the time, you're not going to make any improvements. Whereas if you get feedback telling you that a part of your process wasn't the most enjoyable for one of your clients, you're going to learn from that. So we want to make sure that we are gaining the lessons at the end of each year. And obviously, I want you doing this throughout the year as well, but especially during this time of strategic reflection. I mean, I look at my cats. Cats are naturally reflective, right? They assess their environment, they learn from their experiences, they don't waste energy on what's not serving them anymore, whether that's you and your cuddles or a particular resting spot or whatever. They also know when to rest and recharge. So we can learn a lot from them, I think. But since my cats are not here to explain to you how to do your end of year reflection, I thought that I would take some time to do that. And seriously, though, I don't make New Year's resolutions. I've discussed this in previous episodes. And the reason that I don't do New Year's resolutions is because I aim to grow every day of the year, not just as the year changes over. But that's why I think reflection at the end of the year is so important. Because if we're continually growing throughout the year, we've definitely got some wins to celebrate, do we not? Now, I will admit this year was a pretty challenging year for me. I found myself behind on projects and releasing the trainings that I've been working on, like training lessons continuously throughout the year. They were behind, I was behind on these due to, personal life stuff that had gotten in the way. And as many of you know, just over a year ago, I did lose my dad, and that was a devastating loss for my family. And at the same time, it's not, I've learned to take what I gained and focus on what I gained from losing my dad more so than what I lost. And to give a little bit of a brief reminder or refresher for anyone who might not remember, or for if you're new as a listener, my dad lived with MS for over 30 years of his life. And when he passed away, he had no mobility left and couldn't speak and communicate in the same way any longer as well. And we kept him home throughout his entire life. We made a lot of accommodations to ensure that he was able to stay at home, and my mother and I were full-time caregivers. What this ended up meaning for my mom and I is that our relationship with each other suffered a little bit. Not that we didn't love each other and that we weren't close or that we argued or anything like that. There was nothing negative there. We just didn't have the strength in it because we weren't given the luxury of being able to just hang out together, because one of us had to be with my dad at all times. So there weren't a lot of times that my mom and I just got just time with just the two of us. Since my dad's passed, my mom and I have grown incredibly, incredibly close. We've done some incredible things together, and we've spent a lot of really treasured, valuable time making new memories and celebrating and not taking for granted this time that we have together. So I'm very, very grateful and fortunate for all of that. But nonetheless, on top of, dealing with the grief of losing my dad, I've had a number of other personal things that have kind of gone in the way. And I'm not going to list all of them, but it was one of those years, and you might have had one of these years as well, where it felt like every time I was taking a couple of steps forward, I would get knocked down in some way. And it's hard not to feel like the universe is trying to keep you down when you feel like you're treading through water all the time. Like you're just, trying to plow snow basically. And that's not an easy feeling when you just feel like everything just feels uphill and hard and challenging. And that's been myself this year. Don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of really phenomenal moments throughout the year, but we tend to spend more time focusing on the what's not going well and what is versus what is going well. So with everything that's been going on, I have found myself behind on some of the commitments that I've made and some of the deliverables that I've promised. So as this year closes out, I'm taking a really close look at what has been preventing me from meeting my timelines. Because again, I can blame all these personal circumstances that got in the way. And yes, that certainly contributes, but what was I doing to cause these personal things to happen? And what was I doing potentially to allow them to disrupt me the way that they did? And how might I be able to improve on this going into the new year? I am looking at bringing on some additional team members that I think is going to significantly improve things, as well as implementing some new automations. And I'm leaning even further into AI, not necessarily in terms of let AI write all of my emails, social media posts, blogs, etc., but how can I utilize AI to prevent burnout and decision fatigue, and allow myself to have some more collaboration with someone or something that I trust, essentially, that has a solid understanding of my business. I've also taken a really close look this year at the services and programs that I offer, and I've spent time identifying which ones do I want to lean into further and which ones do I want to move away from. And these are not easy decisions, but if we continue to just add new things every single year without releasing anything, that's how we tend to find ourselves in a state of overwhelm and without time for the things that matter, of course. And as I have found myself, I'm behind on important deliverables for clients. So I need to release some things that are no longer as high of a priority, no longer give me the joy that they once gave me. And of course, I want to be strategic about all of this as well, but it's something that we need to spend a little bit of time reflecting on. So let's start the CEO end of year reflection. Okay. There's a few steps to this. I think if there's 4 parts to this that I'm going to go through. So step 1, this is the foundation of everything. We need to celebrate the wins. Before we look at what needs to change, we need to celebrate what went right And this isn't optional, okay? You need to do this. This is how you build your confidence and your momentum. And you also set yourself up to be able to do some strategic reflection without beating yourself up, because you need to know I am valuable. I am strong. I am qualified and talented and skilled at the things that I do. And I am worth what I am charging. All those things, all those confidence boosters that we need. When did you put out a proposal, for example, that they didn't even bat an eye at and said, yes, where do I sign? What are you most proud of accomplishing this year? What revenue milestones did you hit, perhaps? Or what new skills did you develop? Or did you set some boundaries and maintain those boundaries? Like, where did you hold firm on them? Even if it means that you lost a job, but you were able to hold to those boundaries. And what I often find, when you hold to your boundaries and you lose out on one job, a much better one comes along. So maybe we celebrate some of that. What client transformations happened because of the work that you did, because of the way that you showed up for them? What did you do to improve your own health and your own wellness? Maybe it was just a matter of you started binging this podcast. Great start, right? What risks did you take? This is a big one, because I've talked to a few of my friends recently. I've had some really great and powerful conversations. I am now in what's considered my late 40s. And there's a period of reflection that happens, especially in women, when we hit this stage. And part of it is due to perimenopause and menopause. Our body is literally changing. We see things differently. As our hormones are changing, we're starting to see things differently, reflect on things differently. And I am not always surrounded by entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs in my life are people, for the most part, that I have met over the years of being an entrepreneur. But my childhood friends, my university friends, the people who knew me kind of in those formative growing up years, a lot of them moved into more structured careers, corporate careers, teaching, that sort of thing. And we talk about some of the challenges, for example, that I faced personally this year, and how difficult it can be when you're an entrepreneur, because your business literally relies on your ability to perform at times. And I took some risks. I've talked about this publicly on social media, especially in my email campaign. So if you are within my circle, you've probably heard me talking about this. But I took some risks a couple years ago that didn't pay off the way that I had hoped that they would. And it cost me almost six figures in terms of not only the investment that I made into a particular program that I thought was going to deliver results, but the missed opportunities, the staff time, the labor that I put into it, as well as just putting all of my focus onto that. And what else, what could I have been doing instead? And do I regret making that decision? That's a really hard question to answer, because sure, in hindsight, you can look back and say, well, that was a terrible decision. But I took a risk, and that risk should be celebrated. The fact that I took that step in the first place. So this conversation I've been having with my, what I like to call my non-entrepreneurial friends, is the envy that they have in me taking those risks, me making those decisions, me having that control over my own destiny, and being able to put myself in the driver's seat for what am I going to do and what am I not going to do. When you're working for someone else, you have certain restrictions on what it is that you can and cannot do. Meanwhile, as an entrepreneur, we have the opportunity to take some risks. They don't always pay off, but we should celebrate the fact that we took those risks in the first place, because that's a pretty big deal. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down at least 10 wins from this year. That's right, 10. That's actually not that many. Okay, because if you think about it, that is less than one per month. I guarantee you have had at least one win every month. So I want you to write down 10 of these, and they don't all have to be business wins. They can be personal wins as well. I actually can do this pretty easily because I keep a journal of my daily wins, and I go through every single day. At the end of the day, I write down what were my 3 wins for the day. And then what are 3 things I'm going to focus on tomorrow? This is how I start every single day with intention. I do this throughout the week as well as on weekends, every single day. And this is not something that I came up with myself. I have to give credit where credit is due. This came from the book, The Gap in the Game by Dan Sullivan. And it's about living in the gain more so than the gap, beautiful book. If you have some time to read it, check it out over the holidays, because it really helps to change your perspective. And I think it could be a really powerful book to read going into the new year as well, to help you get that mindset of focusing on the wins. It doesn't mean that you're not reflecting on what didn't go well. It just means that you are prioritizing and focusing on the wins. So at the end of the year, I go through the journal and I take a look at some of my daily wins. Some of them seemed really small at the time, but that small win was a stepping stone to a bigger win. So you really want to ensure that you're celebrating that. So I want you to go through and I want you to write down at least 10 wins. Okay. Now that we're feeling really confident, we've got this solid momentum that we've experienced. We're on a bit of a high from reflecting on all of our wins. We're going to go through and we're going to extract the lessons from this. And we're going to do that right after this quick message. We'll be right back after this quick message.
This episode of the Real Women, Real Business podcast is brought to you by, well, potentially you. Are you passionate about helping female entrepreneurs build stronger, work smarter, and dream bigger? We're looking for strategic partners who understand that success doesn't have to come with sacrifice and stress. Our podcast reaches accidental CEOs who are ready to turn their Swiss cheese knowledge into solid business foundations. With 30% month-over-month growth, we're redefining how working hard looks and feels for passionate entrepreneurs. Visit aboutshaunalynn.com/partner to learn how you can join us in building sustainable, passion-driven businesses.
And welcome back to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. All right, welcome back to the Real Women, Real Business podcast, where we are talking about how to end the year like the CEO that I know that you are. And we're talking about doing a strategic reflection at the end of the year. So we've just taken the time to reflect on our wins for the year. You've written down your 10 wins, of course. If you haven't, pause this episode, write down those 10 wins and come back to it. Because now we're going to move on to part 2 of the framework for ensuring that you are ending your year strategically. And we're going to extract the lessons. This is where the growth happens. We look at what didn't go as planned, not to beat ourselves up, but to pull out the wisdom that we've gained from that. So I want you to ask yourself some things about what didn't work the way you expected it to this year. What patterns maybe kept showing up for you? This was a big one for me this year. And it's not something that I've just discovered now that we're at the end of the year. This is something that I discovered, I would say, a few months ago, and it was pretty powerful. Actually, not even a few months ago. Let me take that back. I discovered it earlier in the year, but also kind of ignored it for a little while until it continued to show up again and again and again. And I'd already acknowledged this pattern. And so I had to take some more time to really not only reflect on what the pattern is that was showing up, but why this was happening. And so this is something that's really important. Take a look at some of the patterns that you face this year. What drained your energy? What maybe took longer than anticipated? What, if you could go back and do things differently, would you do differently? Now, I am someone, I don't like to live with regret. I like to focus on moving forward. I'll be honest, it drives my mother crazy sometimes because she likes to call herself, she's a self-proclaimed pessimist. And there are things that happen. She immediately goes to the dark side, and I'm very glass half full. And she's remarked to me several times, like, I don't know how you do that. Like, how did you just go from like this horrible thing just happened and you just went and found all the positive in it? Because that is how I tend to operate. It doesn't mean I'm not reflecting on what went wrong, but my focus is always on what went well. So although I don't live with regrets, there are definitely some things that if I had to do them over again, I would potentially do them differently. So you want to take a look at that. What would you do differently this year if you could? And maybe what surprised you? What were some things that you hadn't really expected and surprised you that you weren't really prepared for? And how could you have maybe been more prepared for that? So for each lesson that you pull out of this year, I want you to ask yourself, what is this teaching me about myself? What is this teaching me about my business? What is this teaching me about my clients and who I'm serving and how I'm serving them? And now the next part is one of the most powerful parts of this strategic reflection that we're doing here. And that is where we're going to let go of what's no longer serving you. And as I said, if you want a bit of a deeper dive on this, go back and check out episode 45 of the Real Women, Real Business podcast called Letting Go of What No Longer Serves You. So obviously quite aptly named for exactly what it teaches you in the lesson. But we're going to cover it a little bit here in terms of an end of year reflection, because this is where we're going to create the space for what we actually want. You can't keep adding new things to a full plate. Something has to go. So we've talked about this previously. We can't just add on every year. And I think this is one of the things that so many people have a tendency to do. In the new year, this is their New Year's resolution. I'm going to add X, Y, and Z. but we don't tend to look at the A, B, and C that we need to let go of. And these might be things that are legacy things to us that we've had for 10, 20 plus years. And they're difficult to let go. But if we take a close look at them, if we're really being honest with ourselves, they may no longer be serving us. So, what to consider when you're thinking about the things to let go? And there's no limitations to this. I want you to think of anything in your life, both in personal and in business. But here's just a few examples. Maybe there's some services or offers that you have in your catalog of services, et cetera, that just absolutely drains you. And so, is this something you should really continue to offer? What about maybe clients who just aren't the right fit? Maybe it's pricing that undervalues your expertise. Maybe we should be letting go of that, raising our prices. Maybe we have some legacy pricing for some lost leader type services that just really aren't converting the way that they used to. What are some beliefs that have limited your growth? You might have heard of limiting beliefs before. I know Tony Robbins talks about this quite frequently, but he's not the only one. Limiting beliefs are something that keeps us stuck constantly. So maybe it's something like, I have to do it all myself, or I don't have time to rest. That's lazy. I like to be productive, or I can't charge more than this. Who do I think I am to try to charge more than this? My clients can't afford to pay this. I need to be able to support them, whatever that might be. These are beliefs that have limited your growth this year. Perhaps you've made some commitments that no longer align with your vision. So I want you to take a closer look at that. Do you want to carry some of these forward into the new year? It doesn't mean that it's a hard stop January 1, that all of a sudden you're like, poof, I'm no longer serving this particular client or this particular area. Maybe it's a geographical area that you're no longer traveling to, or whatever that looks like. Maybe you've made commitments to charities and organizations, your children's sports or other extracurricular activities, and they no longer align with who you are and what you want to be doing. So take a close look at that. Take a look at your marketing strategies. This is something that I think we should always be doing, of course, throughout the year as well. But we have a tendency to get kind of tied up in, this is what I've always done, or so and so said to me 3 years ago that this is what I need to do on social media, and that's my strategy, without really changing things up. So taking a look at the marketing strategies that aren't working. You should be tracking the value of each of your marketing campaigns and the things that you're doing to see how they're coming out for you. Maybe you have been focusing on perfectionism and people-pleasing patterns, and maybe it's time to let go of those as well. So here's your action step for this part. I want you to make a stop doing list. What are 3 to 5 things that you're committed to leaving behind in 2025? And as I said, this doesn't mean that January 1, there's an automatic reset and poof, these things are gone. You might have to gradually phase some of these out. But knowing that you're entering the year, knowing that you're going to be phasing these out and that you're going to be releasing these is going to really lift a huge mental weight off of your shoulders. Okay, and then the last part of this comes to the vision. And here's the thing, we hear at this time of year, so many people are talking about doing your vision planning, your goal planning, and that is all well and good. But if you haven't done the other 3 steps that I just outlined before you get to planning your vision, you're going to find it difficult to really build something that's going to be truly sustainable. So now that you've celebrated, you've learned, and you've released, you have the clarity and the space to set intention for the new year. So here's some questions to ask yourself when it comes to setting that strategic direction, setting your vision for the year. What's the one big goal that would make the biggest impact? And I mean the biggest impact. And you've heard me talk about this before, but I want you to dream really big. I don't want you to think super small. I want you to dream really, really big. What is that one big goal that would make the biggest impact? Even if it's not a matter of achieving that goal in its entirety this year, but it's about focusing on moving towards it. What's something that maybe you want to do that you want more of? What would you like more of? I mean, I don't know about you, but I always want more time. Maybe a specific time with family, with friends, with particular people in your life, or doing particular activities. Maybe it's revenue, maybe it's just ease, maybe it's joy, maybe it's impact and purpose. And then what do you want less of? You want less stress, less overwhelm, less hustle, less people pleasing? What support do you need in order to make this happen? This is big. And I am tired of hearing people say, but I can't afford to hire anyone. And trust me, I've been there. I get that. But maybe it's not so much about hiring someone, but just leaning into the supports that you already have. Maybe it's about leaning into your accountability partner. Maybe it's about leaning into your loved ones, your spouse, your cheering squad in some way. Maybe it's about leaning into your community and your followers. What support do you need in order to make this happen? And then what's one system or process that you need to build? Just one. I mean, we all know that I'm kind of the systems and processes queen, and I'd really love it if you built 20 new processes if they improved your life. But I want you just to focus on what's one thing that you can really do moving into the new year. And then this is one of the most important questions I want you to ask yourself. How do you want to feel in your business next year? How do you want your business to feel? Do you feel like you're wearing your business sometimes and it feels like it's something that maybe doesn't quite fit right? It's like a blazer that you've outgrown or something that's shrunk in the wash or something. How do you want it to feel like like you're living in your own skin, right? Anytime we wear clothes, we want them to feel like they're an extension of us. Your business should feel the same way. So when you're wearing your business, how does it feel? And I want you to write your answers to these questions, write your vision for 2026 in present tense. I want you to say, like, in 2026, my business feels like I am blank. My clients are fill in the blank. Okay, write these in present tense, not they're going to be, because the problem is when we say that they're going to be, it feels future focused. And so it's easy to put off moving towards that because that's something for future Shauna Lynn to deal with, not present day Shauna Lynn. I want you to be stepping into 2026 present and ready to build immediately. All right. So, here's the thing. You can skip this reflection that I've provided you with here and jump straight into January with the same patterns, or it's going to take you about 90 minutes this week. If you didn't do it throughout listening to this episode, which is a great way to do it, just hit pause and come back to it. I want you to re-listen to this episode, walk yourself step by step through this. I want you to take 90 minutes this week to do this framework. Honestly, this episode is taking me about 30 minutes to record, give or take. And so you can walk through this in about 30 minutes, hitting pause a couple of times. 90 minutes, I think, is a very fair amount of time to set aside this week. Can you do 90 minutes this week? 90 minutes to do this framework and start the year with clarity. Now, you can do this work alone and hope that you stay accountable, or you can do it with support, structure, and a proven system, of course, as well. Here's what I know. The business owners who take the time to reflect, to celebrate, and strategically plan are the ones who build those burnout-proof, sustainable businesses. They grow, they dream bigger, they build massively profitable and sellable businesses. The ones who skip doing this step, well, they tend to repeat the same year over and over and over again. Hello, Groundhog Day, just with different dates, different numbers at the end of the year. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I really want to do this work, but I could use some support, that's exactly what we do inside the Real Women, Real Business Mastery Program. We don't just set goals and hope for the best. We build the foundation, systems, and strategies that make sustainable growth possible. And as you move through the program, you are continually being reminded of your vision. Your vision is not something you create, you set it and you forget it. You put it on a pretty PowerPoint, you put it aside somewhere. It is something that you are continually coming back to. And I just had one of my members do this recently where she was feeling a little bit stuck, and we kept kind of hitting this wall with her. And finally, we sent her back to the vision, and she realized that her vision was not aligned with where she actually started from back in the beginning. She took her vision further back to the beginning and restructured her future vision to really align with that. And the growth that she has seen, the progress she has seen has been incredible, absolutely phenomenal since she started doing that. It's only been a couple of months, but everything that she's doing goes back to what is your vision? So if you are ready to make 2026 the year that you build the business that supports your life instead of consuming it, let's talk, okay? I want you to head over to book your free CEO coaching assessment call, and we're going to create your strategic plan together. So simply go to aboutShaunaLynn.com/coach me. Check out the link in the show notes as well. Of course, we'll have it in there for you. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to say this. Whatever happened or didn't happen in 2025, you're here. You're still building. You're still growing. And that matters. And I don't want you to ever forget that. I want you to take time this week to do this reflection. You are going to feel so empowered from doing this. I want you to celebrate yourself, learn from the hard stuff, let go of what's weighing you down, and set yourself up for a year that feels good, not just something that looks good on paper. I am so grateful to every single one of you who has been a part of this community this year. I want to thank you for listening, for showing up, and for doing the work to build businesses that matter. Those businesses that you are building are not only helping you and your family to live the lifestyle that you deserve and that you desire, but imagine, just think about all the people that you are helping along the way through what you provide, whether it's products, services, whatever you do in your business, you are helping others. And that truly matters to make it a better world for all of us. So I'm going to see you here next week for our final episode of 2025. And until then, I want you to take care of yourself. And I want you to enjoy yourself and your business and your time with your family. Now, remember, if you have enjoyed what I have shared with you today, if you have enjoyed this journey on 2025, I want you to continue to tune in every week. We drop new episodes every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time. And I hope that you will allow me to continue to be a part of your journey throughout 2026 and beyond. And again, I would love to be a bigger part of your journey. Simply go to aboutShaunaLynn.com/coach me to learn more about the Real Women, Real Business Mastery Program, or you can go to realwomenrealbusiness.com to check it out there as well. Don't forget to like us on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. It really, really does help if you leave us a review. We truly appreciate it. And if you know someone in your life, a female entrepreneur that you know can really benefit from today's message, please share this episode with them. It is the best way that we can continue to support each other during this business journey that we're all on together. All right. I look forward to seeing you all next week for our final episode of 2025. And until next time, keep thriving.